first topic of the day. I guess let's start here. I think this is a good place to start writ large if we're going to have a conversation about spring games. Of course, Penn State's spring game, the Blue White game, is this Saturday. But for it looks like a pretty decent handful of other schools around the country, they are not having spring games. Now, that is kind of an interesting part of Penn State versus a lot of other schools. Is the Blue White game at Penn State is a big annual event. If you're listening to this podcast, you know that. You're very well aware of that. At least it's grown into that, particularly I would say the last 15, 20 years. Would you agree on that timeline? Because there was a time it was kind of a smaller event too.
Yeah, but I feel like it was big when I was in school.
Okay.
That's more than 20 years ago. So,
Okay.
I mean, it was...
It's always been an event, I guess.
Yeah. It was one of the big spring weekends. I mean, it was one of the 2 or 3 big spring weekends.
Right. And so now, I think as we move into, I don't know if it's NIL, and I think we can debate that. NIL, just kind of the, for lack of a better term, dumbassery that is college coaching and the worrying about espionage. I think that is a major part of this. The transfer portal is a part of this. We are seeing fewer and fewer schools do a quote unquote traditional spring game, and even we don't know the exact format of Penn State's spring game this year, but James Franklin has kind of already promised that it will be different. But I have an article here. Nebraska, BYU, Michigan State's doing something different. Iowa's not going to do something different. Really, this all started with the Matt Rule Nebraska conversation, but I guess let's start there. And I'm going to ask you a question because I don't know how I feel about it. Is the spring game dying?
It's not well, but it's not doing well because of self-inflicted wounds and, I don't know, home medicine. Like, I guess to beat that analogy to death. People are overthinking this process, right? Like, nobody. Coach Franklin mentioned tonight on his radio show. Well, at least intimated that part of the reason that the game wasn't going to be televised was so people didn't see their players. Well, I think part of the reason is the construction, but part of the reason might be the players. I'm sorry, if you're a coach from another team and you were relying on a team's spring game to make a decision on whether or not you were going to recruit them, dumbassery, right? Like, it's just that it can't possibly be that valuable in terms of recruiting or poaching a player. Health, Texas was the one that said, we played a lot of games last year. Don't know if we can play one more spring game. Nobody's gone out there and killed each other in a spring game in decades, right? So it can't be a health reason. And kids are blowing out their knees in practice or falling in their apartment or doing something stupid. It's all self-inflicted overthinking stuff that's going to hurt these games, I think.
I think that's about maybe a more succinct, polite way to sum it up than dumbassery. But yeah, I think that is what I have struggled with. It's all been very self-inflicted. I think this conversation, of course, all started back when Matt Rule was like, we had players that were basically poached because they were on display at the spring game. And I have a couple of issues with that writ large, and some of that is TV related. I think for the fact that let's take Nebraska, let's take Big Ten, SEC, and most ACC programs, right? They have a very healthy athletic budget with a very heavy portion of that for most of those schools that goes towards football. A flight to State College does not cost that much money in the grand scheme of things. Neither does a flight to Lincoln. Neither does a flight to any of these schools around the country. And for those teams and those programs that quote unquote were scouting and stealing players off of TV broadcasts, by having the game open to the public for free, anybody can go to it. So it doesn't make sense to be weird or anxious about the espionage because there are easy workarounds to it. And I think that is the one big issue I have with it. I do sympathize with the Texas idea in the sense that Texas was like, yes, we played 15, 16 games, as many games as Penn State played last season, effectively. We're gonna change our program and our system to it. And I kind of sympathize that, but then I thought about Penn State and I thought about the fact that Drew Aller probably plays one series at best on Saturday if they are doing traditional series. And then it's going to be second and third string guys that maybe even more so third and fourth string guys that aren't necessarily going to crack the roster. This might be their one chance for the next 2-3 years to actually play in front of a crowd in Beaver Stadium. Or ever really, looking at you, cool Chippy Ellie, wherever you are. And I think what I struggle with that is like, it's just not logical either. And so much of this is silliness that is self-inflicted that frustrates me because it's all being blown into a proportion that is just very unnecessary. And you're telling me that, and the injury thing is the other thing to it. Like, you're telling me that you're not scrimmaging in practice? Like, what are you doing in those practices then? It would be the other aspect. And I just think it's all general silliness that I thought Penn State was going to avoid, but I think in particular with the TV thing, and I think this is what I'm going to write about this week, like, just feels silly to be anxious about that when the event is free and anybody can put on some Penn State gear and walk in and take some pictures and maybe record things,
Well, there you go. Like, if Connor Stallions, right, at Michigan, if dude could figure out how to steal signs during the regular season all over the country, coaching staffs that have grown with analysts and GAs and whatever else can't figure out how to get somebody to an opposing stadium to watch a game that's free or maybe $5. Come on. Like, the whole poaching players thing is just a horrible excuse that just doesn't make sense. And the injuries don't make sense either. Coach Franklin tonight on his radio show, we practice hard. Unlike some programs, we're traditional in our approach. We practice hard every time we have a chance. Well, A, I'd like to know the programs that are going soft in practice. But B, if you're going hard in practice, okay, then that kid could twist the knee, turn out something, slip and fall in Holuba Hall or the grass field or someplace else just as easily as they could on Saturday in front of 30,000 people or whatever show up. I just think you can have a game, and Penn State has had them, with different scoring rules, with different approaches. Heck, you could do 7-on-7 if you want and call it a blue-white game. Although I still don't think that saves you the injury thing, and then it's not a real practice, right? So then you're giving up that for something that's not. I just think it's self-inflicted. They're overthinking some stuff. Nobody expects a full contact winner take all game, right? It is a goodwill event around a final practice of spring. And I think if programs go away from that goodwill event writ large, then that's going to be a loss for the sport because it's getting more and more expensive for people to be connected, to feel like they have access. Because it feels like where this stuff's going to go is, hey, you want to give money to the NIL? Hey, you want to do whatever? You'll get to see and do and participate. And hey, you're bringing your kids up to say they've been to Beaver Stadium. Okay, sorry. I mean, it would be a shame if that's where we're at in 5 years.
Well, and I
or
think
sooner.